Welcome to the Better Sundays podcast. Focused, practical, and usable advice for church leaders looking to reach new young families and impact their community. All right, welcome to the Better Sundays podcast. This is Mike Holmes here, reachkeep.com. We're talking about some important things of reaching young families. We call it the 5 Minutes to Better Sundays podcast because oftentimes we take a real simple kind of a topic, an idea, and try to give you something that you can implement by the next Sunday. And as we move into this new topic of relationships and building relationships, I'm sure you're going to find some really nuts and bolts things that'll be helpful to you. As a matter of review, we did talk over the last several months about reaching young families takes a fertile landing ground or a place where they can come, moms and dads and kids can come and be comfortable and, be ready and be welcomed and, all of that kind of stuff. And you can go back and listen to some of those podcasts. Very important for us to have an environment where they come in and it just really rings the bell for them and they just go, wow, this was an amazing place. We also talked about solutions and the idea that us as a local church needs to create family solutions every Sunday, solve a problem. We talked about, and so now we're moving into this third area, and this is the idea that our churches need to be filled with people that have great relationship skills. And we want to focus on relating to our people and helping them, kind of bond with somebody else. This concept is called high tech or high touch as opposed to high tech. And it really came from back in the 80s, a book that was written by John Naisbitt that dealt with this idea that we have so much high tech and we have so much fancy stuff, and technology is even more prevalent today, that we need to balance that with just simply handwritten notes and talking to people and sitting down and having a relationship with them and being their friend and listening to them. All the listening skills fall into this. So we have quite a few topics that we're going to be covering in this over the next several months. So take some time and download these, listen to them, share them with a pastor friend or church leader friend, however it works. I want to just start by just saying that all relationships our relationships are so important that all life really starts with relationships. In other words, you first bonded to your mother and your brothers and siblings and your dad, and you really start to build that whole family thing, and that's what is the natural way things work. You didn't grow up being forced into a program where you ate food every 4 hours on the hour or whatever. If somebody was creating a program for feeding babies, it would just not work as well as just a mother who listens to the child and knows that, hey, my kid is hungry. So all life starts with relationships. And we need to kind of keep that in mind, that spiritual life starts with a relationship too. Everybody's going to remember the person that talked to them about Christ, the person that introduced them to the Bible or the gospel the very first time and kind of made that clear. It is one of the most valuable things of life. There are many of us that when you were, in the dating years of your marriage, it's like you drove all the way across the country. You didn't sleep for 2 days as you drove to see this person, or you did some, heroic feat just to be with the person you loved. And that is because of relationship, not because of a programmatic type of thing. It's because you wanted to be together. Those famous words of like, I miss you and I love you and I want to be with you. Those are powerful, powerful things that really determine so much of your future that comes once you start to hear those kind of words. It is this idea that some of the most valuable things in the world are your friends. You would do anything for your friends, and you want to be with your friends. You want to be with the ones you love. You want to be with your children. Here in America, when we celebrate big holidays with like the Christmas and Thanksgiving, is people get together as families. And, we really focus on being with the ones that we kind of grew up with. And so relationships are so important, and we need to work that into the local church and figure out how to do that. And that's what we're going to cover over the next several weeks. We're going to give you these little tips and tricks and innuendos about how to kind of build those relationships there. because relationships are really the glue of life. They're really what holds things together more than finances, or more than the same last name, or family, grew up in the same place. The idea of having that relationship is what holds people together, and you'll remember that forever, the people that you grew up with and that you grew with and you learned spiritually with. And so we want to give you some tips and tricks on how to do that. Let me give you just one thought in closing here. We've got to kind of wrap things up. I want to keep it simple here today. We've had many families come to our church and then leave our church just because that's the way it works. They end up moving on to different jobs and those type of things. And as I remember back to those families, I remember times I visited them at their house. I remember the different things we talked about, but I don't necessarily remember the things that I taught them as far as a sermon. I couldn't say, well, they were here for that series or that, book of the Bible that we taught. I don't really recall that as much as I recall them. And if you were to ask those people what they remember, they probably don't remember hardly any of your sermons, but they do remember your kindness. They do remember your advice. They do remember your counsel and your friendship. And those are all relational skills that we can work on. So I just want to share that with you. This is Mike kind of signing out here. I want to keep this one going. Make sure that you take some time to share this with somebody else. And we are just grateful for all of our podcast listeners. Many of you have left reviews. If you haven't done that, today would be a good day to do that. Go to the podcast app there in the Apple Store and click on the show button there and kind of work your way down into our show. And then at the bottom, it has a place where you can hit the review button, and we appreciate that so much. So I'm going to be signing out. God bless you. We'll see you next week. All right, Mike back in studio here. Want to give you just something real quick to think about, to work on for next week, and this sort of little homework assignment. I want you to walk around your building and look at all the places, everywhere from like an entry area to nursery area to the chapel or your auditorium, whatever you call it, and look at the places where you think new friendships are created and where good conversations happen. In other words, where are the places where really healthy conversations happen? Now, we know healthy stuff comes in your auditorium or wherever you speak. You'll stand at a pulpit, people be out there in a chair or a pew. There's good things there. But I'm talking about the more the counsel, the advice, the friendships, kind of stuff. Where does that happen in your building? I want you to try to find 2 or 3 different places. I want you to really think about this, because next week we're going to be covering kind of this idea of mapping. We call it emotional mapping, but this is called a friendship map. It's like where do friends happen in my building, and what can I do to enhance some of that? And again, we're not talking about cutting any of your speaking or Bible teaching time down, but we are talking about how your people can make great friends and get good advice and good counsel from each other, and where that happens. So take a look at your building, walk around and kind of check that out. We'll talk about more of that next week. God bless. Bye.